Good evening. Welcome to the special board meeting of the Sunrise School Division Board of Trustees. My name is Paul Magna. I'm the board chair, and I'm going to call our meeting to order at 7:05. On our agenda 1.2, we have O Canada, and it's from Oak Bank Elementary School. So please stand if you can do so and join us in O Canada.
Sorry, are you waiting for me, Paul? I couldn't hear you there. I think you're muted.
So thank you to Oak Bank Elementary for that, and our treaty acknowledgement is going to be read out by Trustee Pachikowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we acknowledge the traditional land upon which Sunrise School Division resides as Treaty 1 territory. We honor our partnership with Canada's original peoples and respect the gifts of Indigenous history, culture, and language. We commit to moving forward in a partnership with our communities in a spirit of collaboration and reconciliation.
Thank you, Trustee Pachikowski. Moving to 2.0, adoption of our agenda. Be it resolved that the board approve the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by
Harris.
Trustee Harris, seconded by
Pachikowski.
Trustee Pachikowski. Any questions to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll go round table. Trustee Barry, are you good with the agenda? Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Trustee Duma?
Yes, agree.
Trustee Harris?
Yes.
Trustee Inslee?
Yes.
Trustee Pachikowski?
Yes.
Trustee Reed?
Yes.
Trustee Rowland?
Yes.
Trustee Nickel?
Yes.
And Trustee Magna is a yes, so that's passed 9-0. Thank you for that. So obviously our board business is our budget presentation tonight. From the division office, we're going to put up our board. Can we put up our board presentation on the screen so that everybody can see? Thank you. So you'll see it's a day in the life of Sunrise, of a Sunrise student. Next slide talks to us about our agenda. So you've heard some introductions. We're going to do some more in a minute. A divisional overview. We're going to talk a little bit about our focus, our priorities, and our achievements. You're going to see about a day in the life of a Sunrise student. We're going to provide you with a draft budget. We're going to try to summarize as best we can, and then we're going to open the floor if there are any questions. So that's for tonight. Introductions. So I've introduced myself. My name is Paul Magna. I'm the chairperson, and I represent the Powerview Pine Falls area. Each trustee is going to go ahead and introduce themselves now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the introductions. My name is Jarrett Pachikowski. I'm the vice chair of the board this year, and I represent the arm of Brokenhead. in Ward 6.
Trustee Dumas, representing Ward 4, the Oak Bank and area.
Karen Inslee, I also represent Ward 4, Oak Bank area.
Trustee Berry, represent Beausejour, Ward 5.
I'm Trustee Diane Rowland, Ward 3, Dugald.
I'm Trustee Robin Harris, representing Ward 2, which includes Enola and Hazel Ridge.
Trustee Nickel.
Sorry, I had my camera on, but no mic. Don Nickel from Ward 1, representing Whitemouth and Reynolds.
Russ Reed from Lactabani.
Thank you to the trustees for introducing themselves. Superintendent Timko, I'm going to turn it over to you and you can introduce your staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that I will just introduce everybody unless, well, no, we'll let everybody get their own voice in here. I'm Kathy, the Superintendent and CEO of Sunrise School Division. I'll let the three of you get on. Scott.
Thanks, Kathy. Scott Carlton, the Secretary Treasurer of Sunrise School Division.
You're still on mute there, Jackie. Hang on.
Sorry about that. I'm Jackie, Assistant Superintendent, Sunrise School Division.
Stacy?
And I'm Stacy Bonato. I am the Executive Assistant to Scott and the board.
Thank you for everybody for doing that. That's something that's not that easy, and thanks for going ahead. As we move on to, in our next slide, we talk about the Sunrise Vision Statement. And the Sunrise Vision Statement talks about every student will have the opportunity to experience the joy of learning in Sunrise School Division in order to be better prepared for the future with the knowledge, skills, and values to achieve their own personal life goals. So I'm going to turn now over to Mr. Carlton, and Mr. Carlton is going to go ahead and take us through our presentation. And again, we'll give the complete presentation, and after the presentation, we'll certainly take questions. Mr. Carlton.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. A couple of comments first before we get started. I guess you know, as we're becoming more and more used to, it's a bit of a different environment this year. Normally, we would be open to the public and have accept input from anybody wishing to do so in the education center in our MPR room. Obviously, we're not doing that in the middle of a pandemic, so we're doing it a little bit differently this year, virtually on Teams. I did ask that anybody who was interested in providing input to let me know so we can set you up as a presenter. The functionality of Teams requires that you do get set up as a presenter. So if you are watching out there and still have an interest in providing input tonight, it's probably not too late. We can scramble and get you set up. So email myself or Stacy, and we can give it a try to make sure we get you in. Alternatively, please feel free, you know, right up until we pass our budget on the likely first or second meeting in March, to email any questions, concerns, input to budget@sunrisesd.ca to myself, or obviously by approaching any one of your local trustees. The second thing I just want to mention really quickly is, you know, we'll go through a lot of detail on this budget. As it's not an easy thing to do on an annual basis. I will be presenting, but certainly there's been a lot of work done by our entire team, our management, myself, Jackie, Kathy, and our staff as well, supporting us, and Stacy, and also by the Board of Trustees. We spent an awful lot of time virtually in the same room over the course of the last probably a little more than 2 months. We start on our budget process in late November and have gone through in great detail, trying to focus on making sure that we capture the priorities of educating children and also our responsibility to citizens and taxpayers. So, you know, thank you very much to trustees and to our staff for all of the work that's gone in. We do have a draft budget, which we'll share with the public tonight. We do have more meetings left to go before we ratify the budget. So we certainly are happy to accept input up and until we are prepared to vote to pass a resolution on our budget. So, having said that, we'll get started and walk through the presentation that I have prepared for tonight. A little bit about our division, obviously, to start. Sunrise School Division operates 23 schools in the Northeast Man area of Manitoba. 13 public schools we have, 6 colony schools, and 4 adult learning centers. This year, we are projecting to have 4,714 students. About 4,500 full-time equivalents. Our kindergarten kiddies come to school half days, which is an increase of about 134 students, or almost 3% over the last 5 years. So we're growing. When we meet as a team, as a board and management, we take a lot of things into consideration as priorities. You know, certainly over the course of the last year, we've been presented with some significant challenges in Manitoba, providing education and across the world, of course, due to the pandemic. Manitoba specifically, we've been engaged with some challenges. We're in the midst of an education review. We're not too sure what that's going to look like long term, but we do our best to take all of those things into consideration and ensure that we're trying to provide the best possible education for students in our division. Some of our core priorities, obviously, Kathy is fond of saying often that the best thing for education for a student is good teachers. So we want to make sure that we have manageable class sizes so students have an opportunity to have that direct contact with teachers. We provide opportunities for our students in specific programming, French immersion, Ukrainian bilingual classes, music and the arts, and technical education courses. Scrolled a little too far. So certainly we focus on education, and while we have a strong desire to provide quality education, we also respect the fact, as I mentioned off the top, that you know, we use taxpayer dollars, and there's a burden on taxpayers to help us provide that education. So, you know, we focused on providing the best possible outcomes by investing directly in classrooms and specialty teachers. Kathy, I'm going to get you to provide some input on that if you wouldn't mind in a moment. I'll read the rest of the slide first. Ensuring appropriate student supports in clinical staffing and mental health supports, more important now perhaps than ever. Educational assistants, pardon me, who support and enhance our in-class learning, and program leaders who support the teachers in curriculum development and in delivery of education. Kath, if you can jump in and sort of touch base on our specialty teachers.
For sure. And it's not just Kathy who says that it's good teaching that makes a difference. It's all of the educational research. So just following along what all the people who are much smarter than me have to say. Wanted to just make sure that folks knew when we talk about specialty teachers, you know, educators have all this lingo and stuff. Specialty teachers to us are qualified phys ed teachers, industrial arts teachers, home economics teachers, music teachers, art teachers, reading recovery teachers, and probably more that I'm not thinking about. We've got a slide later on that talks about the clinical services that we provide in the division. So those are things like guidance counselors, resource teachers, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, social workers, mental health workers, educational assistants, and psychologists. So we talk about all of those important supports for folks. Those are the places and spaces and the kinds of teachers that we're talking about when we talk about specialty and clinical staffing.
Thanks, Kathy. Just a quick note. Thanks, Stuart, for reminding me. You know, again, if you are wishing to provide feedback, either tonight or in the future, email Stacey and myself. Stacey's email is sbonato@sunrisesd.ca, and you can reach me at scarlton@sunrisesd.ca if you want an easy way to reach both of us. We have set up a specialized email address that is just budget@sunrisesd.ca. Okay, we'll move on a little bit. If I can scroll. So, you know, as we mentioned, our focus is generally on classroom and direct supports in classrooms. We try to make the best, most efficient use of the resources available to us in order to direct some of those cost savings into classroom support. So, you know, we've done some really effective things over the last several years, upgrades in our HVAC systems to reduce utility and heating costs. We've done a fair bit of installation of the LED lighting as well, which is designed to reduce utility costs. We've automated several different areas of our administration, recently implemented a workboard component of our software, which enables us to make better use of substitute teachers. You know, a real easy example is recently we've enabled remote access for trustees who are approving accounts payable so that they can do that online and don't have to physically come in and sign checks. They have access to all invoices remotely through our software. In transportation, we've done a lot of work over the last couple of years in routing, also in engine diagnostic software. Our GPSs allow us to reduce idling time, things like that. Savings realized, as I mentioned, we do like to redirect into in-class supports. I mentioned our GPS software. We're talking about adding on to that in the future. One of the things that especially given our climate and environment, that we feel would be handy for parents would be an application that would indicate to them where their bus is and when their bus will arrive, so the students aren't waiting 15 minutes outside in the cold. So we're definitely going to be looking at that. We focus on IT in our classrooms. You know, technology is absolutely an important tool for our students to gain experience with. So we're looking at upgrades in tablets, laptops, interactive projectors, smart boards, things like that enhance their experience. And then obviously we do make sure that, you know, while we're providing education to your students, their safety is also a priority. So that means safe facilities, security systems and mechanical systems that ensure their safety while they're in class. So that's some of the priorities that we focused on as we're going through the lengthy process of developing a budget. I'm going to walk you through sort of where we landed as a budget by going department by department, walking you through sort of a regular day for one of our students and where it is that we utilize the resources and allocate some of the funding that we get. So a typical day for one of our students begins by hopping on a bus. 80% of our 4,700 students ride our bus to school. We have 90 bus routes currently. Our buses travel about 2.8 million kilometers per year, and that includes regular runs, field trips, and extracurriculars, some of which obviously have been curtailed this year. Student safety is a key issue for us in providing education. We also want to make sure we provide a safe environment for your students, your children. So we operate a full service repair facility here in Beausejour and rotate and retire our equipment on a regular basis. So this year, oh, I went too far again. Sunrise is projecting to spend approximately $5.2 million on transportation, up very little over last year, about $11,000, 0.22%. You can see there what we spend on a per student basis. We do spend quite a bit more than the provincial average when it comes to transporting our students, largely just due to the geographic area, with the exception of a couple of divisions, Frontier and DSFM. Sunrise does represent the largest geographic area in the province, and it creates a lot of challenges, certainly in terms of busing and transporting students to school, but also in other areas. Our schools are spread out all over, and that can have the effect of increasing costs for us. On a per transported student basis, we actually do quite well. The average cost for us is about $1,273 per student on an annual basis, compared to about $1,300 across the province per student. We have also set aside in the budget about $400,000 this year for the purchase of new equipment for transportation. So then your students arrive at school. Students arriving at school greeted by staff and prepared to start the school day in one of our 23 facilities. We manage, clean, maintain, and repair over 750,000 square feet of facilities across the division. We also maintain parking lots, play structures, and grounds. One of the key responsibilities for our maintenance department, in addition to that, is managing capital projects across the division. We're looking at going into a phase 2 of an HVAC replacement at École Edward Schreyer School here in Beausejour. We've also just recently been approved by the province to proceed with an exterior wall and roof replacement at Springfield Collegiate. So those are major projects that are handled by our maintenance department. We also do some more minor, I call them a little bit more minor projects. I mentioned off the top, we're looking at LED lighting replacement in most of our facilities across the division to save on utility costs. So the maintenance department also handles a lot of those minor upgrades as well. So this year, again, on maintenance, we're looking at spending a little less than $7 million, $6.925 million. Up a little more than 1% over last year, 1.12%. We do fairly well against the provincial average. We're pretty close to the provincial average on our spending per pupil. Most of that increase related to utility costs, which seem to be increasing. They increase obviously dramatically when we go through a February like we have and experience the cold weather. And then a little bit on some labor related costs. On a square foot basis against the provincial average, we do quite well. In terms of our maintenance budget, we average about $7.10 a square foot for maintenance against the provincial average of $7.75. Now your student arrives at school and is prepared for your school day. Sunrise employs approximately 375 teachers. Again, I mentioned off the top, trying to maintain a manageable student-to-teacher ratio and appropriate class sizes that support student learning and achievement. The Board of Trustees is very concerned that classrooms are well equipped. It's key to have technology in place to enhance the experience. And we ensure that all students have equitable access to the necessary materials they require to be prepared. We have, since my tenure here, which has been about 3 years, had a purchasing department that does focus on volume buying where available to make sure that we achieve best possible pricing, and even partnering with other school divisions, forming buying groups, things like that, to ensure that the pricing we receive from vendors on goods and services is the best possible pricing. Kathy, I'm going to ask you to chime in a little bit again if you want to just touch base on what we look for in terms of ratios for students to class sizes.
You bet. So we do our staffing in classrooms in 3 different levels. We do sort of a K-4, which is the early years level. And we try to aim for classes that are anywhere from 21 to 24 in size. In our middle years, it would include grade 5 to grade 8. And we aim for 25 to 28 students in a classroom in grade 5 to 8. Again, aim for those in classrooms. Sometimes one of the issues in rural Manitoba is that in our smaller communities, some classes might be smaller than that and some classes might be bigger than that, just based on the fact that there is only one grade level at certain schools. In our grade 9 to 12, which is our high school area, we have varying ratios based on the size of a high school. So our smaller high schools have a lower ratio so that they can offer more courses or enough courses that students can graduate and have all of the options they need. Our ratios range from 1 to 15 students up to 1 to 22 students in the high school. And again, that depends entirely on the size of the high school.
Thanks, Kathy. Just double checking that I'm not muted. I did touch a little bit on making sure classrooms are well equipped. Technology is a key component of education delivery these days. We do strive to provide the best experience for our students by making sure we're as current as possible and embracing new technologies where available, smart boards and tablets and things like that. We do rotate our computer hardware replacements on a 5-year schedule. When I say hardware, I'm talking laptops and tablets for the most part. Classroom technology like projectors and smartboards don't have a rotational replacement schedule. They're kind of replaced on an as-needed basis. So investment in the budget in this area is required to keep our equipment as current as possible. This is the biggest department in our budget and certainly the most important, our regular instruction this year. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble scrolling. Bear with me, connected to the internet. My computer wants to act up a little bit. There we go. So again, the biggest department in our division is regular instruction. We expect to spend $37.3 million this year. We spend a little more than the provincial average. Kathy touched on some of our challenges with classroom sizing and teacher ratios. We're projecting an increase over last year of about 1.69 million or 4.7%, largely due to projected increases in salaries. We do our best to hold the line. Some of those are contractual. We certainly have control over full-time equivalent employees, but most of our employees are under collective bargaining agreements, and some of those call for increases on an annual basis. Regular instruction expenditures also include things like ICT resources that we touched on, and making sure that our students have access to technology. We're a little bit higher again than the provincial average, largely due to our division demographics. I touched on a couple of the challenges, the widespread geography of our division and related travel costs, and then certainly some challenges with regard to classroom sizing and teacher staffing. In Sunrise, all students have contact with our student services personnel. Their guidance counselors, resource teachers, psychologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, social workers, mental health workers, and educational assistants who are key to working alongside classroom teachers and families to support our students and their learning and achievement. Our student services department, second largest in the division. This year we're anticipating 3.5 million. Again, a slight increase over last year, a little less than 4%, about $470,000, largely due to an increase in salary-related, labor-related costs. In our budget, we allocate about 19.4% of our budget to student services. The provincial average is about 18.7%, so we're right there around the provincial average. Apologies again, it's a little bit glitchy here connected to the internet trying to scroll through. Next we have administration. You see myself, Kathy, and Jackie there, who support and direct our frontline staff. We certainly lead the work in schools curriculum implementation, student services, human resources. We have finance, we have technology. Administrative costs have been historically for the last several years subject to a cap as directed by the province. The cap goes up a little bit, up and down a little bit depending on various factors, but has averaged around 3.84%, and we are in alignment with that cap from the province. So this ensures that we're providing administrative services efficiently, and we have accountability with regard to our costing. Our administrative costs include our trustees, our senior admin, again, functional departments like finance, human resources, and technology. This year, we're proposing to spend $2.099 million, a slight increase of about 1.2%. We continue to try to hold the line on these costs and make sure that we comply with provincial directives, and we do that, as I had mentioned before, about ensuring through our purchasing department that we're receiving best possible pricing on all the goods and services that we buy, volume buying where applicable, and piggybacking on provincial RFPs in many cases. In comparison to the provincial average, our expenditures are fairly well in line with those experienced by other divisions, despite our unique challenges like geography, and that does impact, you know, for some of our senior administration or management. If I want to meet with a principal, you know, it's not a matter of driving 20 blocks to go meet with a principal. Some of our schools are as much as 45 minutes away from our business center here in Beausejour, so that does create challenges for us. Our provincial costs are, you know, in line with the provincial average. Instructional support, one of the other departments in our budget, is support for our teachers to strengthen instructional strategies that they use to improve student learning and success, specifically in the areas of literacy, numeracy, active learning, languages, and music. We engage with 4.25 program leaders who work with teachers to create high quality responsive teaching and in the use of relevant data to inform their practice towards success on student learning outcomes. Again, I'm going to ask Kathy to expand just a touch on that. We also have some additional support, including library staff, teaching materials, and professional development that reside in this department of our budget. Kath, did you want to expand just a bit on program leaders?
Yeah, I'm going to grab the professional development part, and that's part of the 600s in frame. One of the pieces that is really important, and again, not just in Sunrise, but should be important to the development of each and every child, is that same research fact that the most important factor in student success is having good quality teachers. And if we're going to have good quality teachers, then we have to spend the time and resources to making sure that everybody has what they need to be a good quality teacher. So our 4.25 program leaders are out in schools working side by side with teachers. They're working in the areas that are identified in the slide, but most importantly, they're working with teachers on how to appropriately triangulate data, to look at products and conversations and observations with kids, to work with student and classroom profiles so that they can adjust their teaching or do what's called responsive teaching to the students that are in front of them. The students who come to our classrooms our families send us their very best children, and we want to make sure that we meet them at the place that they're at and are responding to their needs in the best way possible. So that's kind of the professional development and the program leader support that's out there for each and every classroom teacher in our school division.
Thank you, Kathy. Give me 1 second here for some technical difficulties, and I will be right back with you. My apologies, back with you. So as Kathy mentioned, supporting our teachers in certainly the development of teaching strategies is important. We look to spend about $1.524 million on that this year, including our program leaders and those supports. Actually shaved a little bit of labor costs last year, about $65,000 or about 4% of our budget. We are in alignment with the average per student cost in the province. I'll touch on this briefly. Adult learning and community education. Our 4 adult learning centers operate on a budget of approximately $994,000 that is funded by the province of Manitoba. Community education services, you'll see a pretty dramatic reduction in our budget this year. That's really just a function of the way in which we budget. We do receive from time to time grants from other agencies to perform specific functions. In this case, we did have a grant last year from the Interlake Eastman Regional Health Authority to perform some work around the area of speech pathology for pre-kindergarten students. I have not budgeted those expenditures this year, so that's the change in budgeting. We have also not budgeted those revenues. So if we do happen to proceed with a similar type project in the future, it would not have an impact on our budget because we would be including both the grant dollars and the expenditures against those grant dollars. So now we get into the nuts and bolts, and I get to talk accounting. So if you could see my face, you'd see the smile on it. Here's our provincial funding announcement this year. Again, a very small increase, which has been consistent with the past several years. 0.4% increase overall in our provincial funding for education. And we put it all together with all the expenditures and the funding that we receive, and we are again going to achieve a balanced budget. We are looking at increasing expenditures largely in the area of regular instruction by about $1.1 million. We've achieved some savings and reductions in other areas. This year, the province has asked us to hold the line on municipal taxes. So we are doing so. We are asking for the same amount of municipal taxes as we did for the 2021 budget. Because our property values in the school division increased, we now have about $2.853 billion worth of property in our division. This is going to result in a mill rate reduction of from 13.725 to 13.531, a slight reduction in the mill rate. So the special requirement, which I'm sure a lot of people are interested about, is the ask from the municipalities. It's based on our budget need and our provincial funding. Because our total assessment that property values in the division are up 1.49%, we are able to drop the mill rate again from 13.725 to 13.531. So this is the over the last 2 years, we've gone from 13.844 down to 725 last year, and this year down to 13.531. So we're working on getting that down. That calculates out to a reduction of about 2.3% over the last 2 years. As is represented by the data in the next slide, which is the chart showing the reduction over the years from 2009. Just a quick calculation on the effect based on home values. After the education tax rebate, a property owner of a property with an assessed value of 150,000 is looking at a small reduction, obviously, in their municipal taxes for this year, education taxes, and is looking at taxes in the area of $163 based on that mill rate. Modest reductions of municipal taxes across the board for various different property value levels. So in summary, Sunrise is proposing a budget with an increase of about 1.1 million in expenditures, which represents an increase of about 1.6% over last year's budget. We continue to make efforts to control our operational and overhead spending and focus on ensuring that most of our resources are directly related to classroom spending. We have decreased administrative staffing. We have decreased this year some of our capital expenditures. We are attempting always to control salaries. And as mentioned, we do focus on expenditures that have direct classroom impact. Given the provincial funding and the property values in our division, the result of that is that the proposed mill rate will be a reduction of 1.4% from 13.725 to 13.531. And most of the increase in our expenditures, again, just to itemize, are related to labor cost increases for Sunrise's 5 different labor groups. And that is essentially our proposal, our presentation for tonight. I did have one member of the public reach out to present. Hang on one moment. Okay, looks like unfortunately we're not going to be able to do that. So I invite anybody watching or listening to please certainly forward input on the budget process to budget@sunrisesd.ca, and we will absolutely make sure that your input gets into the hands of the trustees prior to our next meeting.
Thanks very much, Mr. Carlton, for the presentation. So again, unfortunately, because we're doing things remote, we don't have, we would normally have people in front of us sharing their comments and their questions. So one of the things that certainly to provide us feedback on what we have is certainly the email at scarlton or the budget at sunrisesd.ca. They can also reach out to any one of the 9 trustees that are there. Our names and our contact information are on the website to provide us feedback. Again, this is not a finalized budget. It is a draft budget, and it is a budget that we will work on over the next little while. We have to have a budget in by the end of March, but again, we're waiting to hear from the general public as to what they're thinking, and again, we'll continue to do some more deliberations. Kathy, Scott, have we missed anything? Is there anything that you wanted to add?
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, just a final thing again, reiterating, the board spends a lot of time and effort on this. Certainly we spend a lot of time on this year virtually on Teams meetings, so appreciation to the board and to, again, Jackie, Kathy, Stacy, for all the hard work that goes into this. And I certainly know that we have one member of the public who wished to participate. My apologies. It appears that once we start a Teams live meeting, we cannot add you as a presenter, but please make sure that your input is sent to budget at Sunrise SD, and we will get that input into the hands of the trustees before we move into our next budget meeting.
Is there anything from any? Go ahead, Kath.
I was just going to say thanks again to the trustees, to any members of our community who've already shared, to staff, to any folks who have input on our budget. It's not easy work, and a big, huge thank you to Scott for all of his heavy lifting in the number crunching. He does get a twinkle in his eye when he looks at spreadsheets. It doesn't matter what they have in them. So thank you for all the hard work that you've done to lead the team through the budget process thus far. Just thanks to everybody.
Thanks, Kathy. So again, Scott, we don't have any other comments that have come in through either one of our emails, and we have the one person that wanted to present, but technically there's a reason that they can't go ahead and do that.
I'm just going to double check my emails one more time, Paul, while we're on.
We've also had someone at the front door here at the Education Center, and I can report in that there is no one here at the Education Center who has come to present physically here at the Education
Scott,
Center.
is there a way that that one person that wanted to present, could they not get on a phone and at least you hold your phone and so that we could hear that person on a speakerphone?
We can certainly try that.
I know it's not the presentation that maybe somebody would like, but at least somebody we could, the 9 trustees and senior admin can hear somebody's voice and they can call in and let us know.
If it's at all helpful, my computer is right next to my landline in the office, Scott.
Okay, hang tight here. I'm just going to reply to that in an email, providing Kathy's direct line and or my cell phone number. Okay, we may want to give that a couple of minutes then, Paul.
Thanks, Scott. Of course, silence is always awkward when we're waiting, but a reminder that to the public that we do want to hear your comments. So again, you can get a hold of any one of the trustees. You can email either scarlton@sunrisesd.ca or budget@sunrisesd.ca. You can certainly call Kathy or Scott and share some of that information. We certainly want to hear from you as to where we are and where some of our priorities could or should be. And then moving forward, the board has a budget meeting this Thursday. If we meet next Tuesday, we meet in the middle of the month. And again, the whole effort is to get a budget passed. But here's the work on the initial draft as to where we are.
Could I just ask a question? It's Trustee Juma to the chair. So just so for the public to know that this video will be available for the public to see if they want to watch it, whoever missed it. And also the presentation, will that be available on the website also, just the PowerPoint?
Thanks for the question, Trustee Duma. So both are available. Certainly through ESB is the video is there, and I believe that by tomorrow morning the presentation will be up on our website, and it'll be we talked about that this afternoon, and it'll be available for parents or community members to take a look at it. So thanks for bringing that up, Diane. But those are two ways that people can go ahead and see it. Thanks. Anyone else?
Just a FYI, I did receive a reply that the member of the public would be happy to submit their input in writing, although I am getting a phone call. 1 second.
Perhaps just a clarification, Mr. Chair, that when people are looking for that information, there is a financial section for budget stuff under board. So when they go to the Sunrise website, up at the top, if they click on board, it will have financial information that will have all that, as well as links on what's called the slider across the top of the page. So when that slides across your screen, if you click on the budget one, it will take you to where you need to go.
Kathy, just a question that somebody can, if they want to see the actual presentation that Scott gave, it is available as well. Could you talk people through that as well?
For sure. So all board meetings, if we go onto the website, www.sunrisesd.ca, on that top banner, there are links, and under board, it will have a drop down that says meetings. And for each and every meeting of the school board, you can click on the link for the live meeting to attend, but you can also click on the recording. So as soon as it's done, we post that up there, and someone could go and watch all of the meetings we've had. They're all right there under board meetings.
Yeah, just to confirm, Paul, that member of the public did call me and said, you know, they wanted to reference some pages of the presentation. So they're happy to wait until it's on the website tomorrow morning, and we'll certainly address input likely to all trustees in writing.
Okay. So we don't see any other questions that have come up. I'm assuming then, Scott, Kathy, and Stacy.
No, just check my email one more time, Paul, and we're good.
Good here.
Okay. Okay, so I need to remind trustees that we have an in-camera meeting right after this. You do have a link that Stacy sent to you. It's on your calendar. You'll have to log out of this and go onto your calendar. So Scott, we don't have anyone?
Nope, nothing to report, Paul.
Okay, so it looks like that we have an adjournment. So I need a motion before I ask for the motion to adjourn. Just a reminder, trustees, is that there's that link that you were given by Stacy as we're going into in camera right after this meeting. I need a motion to adjourn then.
Trustee Pachkowski motions to adjourn.
Thank you, Trustee Pachkowski. Thank you very much to your staff, Kathy, for the work that you did on our budget, and hopefully that the public can get an opportunity to take a look at it and provide us some feedback. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Right.